On May 22, 2020, 13 years after construction began in 2007, the Akademik Lomonosov went into full operation. It is currently the world's only floating nuclear power plant. In this video, we want to understand why Russia is building these new facilities and what strategic advantages they try to gain. Using nuclear power at sea is not entirely new. It is a technology that is of great importance for military usage. Nuclear-propelled ships are able to be self-sufficient over a long period of time, making them less reliable on ports or supply ships. This expensive technology provided enormous strategic advantages during the Cold War and was therefore primarily pushed forward by the United States and the Soviet Union. The entire active US aircraft carrier fleet is nuclear-powered, and France also maintains a nuclear-powered carrier. China, which is currently building its own fleet of aircraft carriers, is also considering using nuclear power for them in the future. In addition, Russia operates a number of nuclear-powered icebreakers. And in military submarines, nuclear propulsion is particularly beneficial as it enables the crew to stay underwater for months at a time if necessary. But the Akademik Lomonosov is not a warship, and the nuclear energy isn't used to propel the ship itself. Rather, it is a floating power plant that can produce electricity for up to 200,000 people. An idea that also isn't entirely new. The first floating nuclear power plant was the MH-1A, a converted Second World War cargo ship built for the US Army, which used to ship in the Panama Canal Zone in the 60s and 70s. However, this ship, which served as a prototype for an eventual fleet of such plants, was retired from service in 1976, and the project never continued. The nuclear plant consists of two KLT-40 naval propulsion reactors that are already being used in Russian icebreakers. It is 144 meters long and 30 meters wide and will be able to provide up to 70 megawatts of electricity. The heat generated during nuclear fission can be used for district heating. Since the vessel has no propulsion of its own, it must be towed to wherever it is heading. And every 12 years, the entire power plant will be towed back to the shipyard where it is overhauled and the nuclear waste is unloaded. Completion of the Akademik Lomonosov took place in St. Petersburg, from which the ship was then towed to Murmansk. Here, it was equipped with the nuclear fuel elements, repainted, and then began its journey to its first location, Piviek, north of the Arctic Circle. The power plant will supply this shrinking port town with energy, and it should replace an existing, aging power plant. Russia wants to mass-produce these floating power plants and therefore achieve more efficient construction than is currently possible with nuclear power plants. In addition to cost savings resulting from the assembly line efficiencies of a shipyard, the project planners also hope to reduce local opposition that is common with new nuclear plants. These vessels can be removed from a region with little effort, which could increase acceptance of such projects. Additionally, these plants can be used more flexibly. They could bridge transition times in regions that are undergoing structural change. And these power plants could cover short-term energy requirements, for example in larger construction projects or offshore drilling. Now, looking at Russia's coast, it's quite obvious where these plants will be used. The Russian Arctic is experiencing the consequences of global warming, and the Russian government is investing into this region. Since 1978, scientists have been able to continuously monitor the polar region with satellites. And the data shows that the area of sea ice is declining. Proportionally, the amount of old ice, which is thicker and contributes to the binding of new ice, is reduced. This facilitates access to northern oil and gas deposits, and the Russian government wants to promote the usage of the Northern Sea Route, a shorter connection between Europe and Asia. The amount of time each year that this route is clear of ice and can be passed by container ships is increasing. On March 6, 2020, Russian President Vladimir Putin signed a strategy paper that outlines Russia's intention in the Arctic for the next 15 years. It includes measurements to improve the socio-economic situation of communities in these regions, as well as further promote the Northern Sea Route, as well as tax reliefs for oil and gas projects in the Arctic. As part of these plans, Russia is also renewing its nuclear icebreaker fleet with 2 new classes that are planned to be larger and more powerful than the existing icebreakers. The floating power plant could be an important tool in this larger Russian plan to better utilize the strategic potential of the country's Arctic region. For example, 5 of these floating power plants will be used by the Russian energy company Gazprom for offshore drilling platforms on the Kola and Jamal peninsulas. Public opinion on nuclear energy varies widely in different countries. Major catastrophes such as the Chernobyl disaster in 1986 or Fukushima Daiichi in 2011 have also led to many nations deciding against nuclear energy and some countries phasing out the technology. In many places, it is a controversial political subject where the risks of a catastrophe and negative long-term consequences are weighed against economic aspects, energy security, and a reduction of carbon emissions. The Russian floating nuclear power project is also criticized by a number of organizations. Despite marine nuclear power being used in a wide variety of military technologies, there is a fear that a floating power plant is more susceptible to natural disasters. Particularly, there is a concern that in the event of a tsunami, an accident could be caused. And previous incidents such as a radioactive leak on a nuclear-powered Russian icebreaker in 2011 have contributed to safety concerns. However, the operator claims it has considered all risks involved and was able to rule out any danger with the facility. Due to the country's goal to further make use of the Arctic's potential, Russia has opted for an expensive investment in an area that is not pursued by many other nations, but it is probable that Russia will not remain alone. China is also aiming to build floating nuclear power plants, so this might be a technology that we will see more of in the coming decades, as it can be a strategic advantage for either bridging transition periods or for remote regions that want to increase their energy security.